Good morning. This is Simon with Trade and Perform Coaching. Okay, guys, just so you know, this is for education purposes only. This morning, it's going to be a very interesting open. We are opening just below this gap fill that is at 1682. And obviously, the markets are strong across the board, including NQ, which had an impressive move overnight. So we're about 15 minutes to the open, and I kind of just wanted to look at what was happening in terms of the chart. So obviously, we're going to have initial support down here at 1662. So I didn't put that in there. Excuse me, the gap closed, but then below that 1662. And the reason why is if you look overnight and early in the morning yesterday, we just prior, meaning Sunday nights overnight, Monday nights overnight, coming into Monday morning. We could not penetrate below there. I would expect responsive buyers there. Also at yesterday's close, I would expect responsive buyers there. That would be a nice stretch lower if we get it. Okay. So on the other side, we have 1682.50, 1682 to 1682.75 will be that gap fill area. If we get above it, you have to consider how many people are still short, or more importantly than the short trade is how many managers are underperforming, right? That are going to put a lot of pressure on this market and might just push it straight through. So we've come back and we filled that entire area from where we broke down prior, and you have to consider the overall market. Okay, we didn't even get down 5% under pretty, essentially threat of war. We didn't even get down 5%. So really the buyers are in control. And then, so I mocked up a little bit of my volume profile to kind of give an idea of what we're looking at. And again, I don't trade off of trend lines, but when I look at the ES and the ES on the daily as well. Let me see if I had brought that up at all. Hold on one second. I did not, but we'll just switch it and we'll take a look at it real quick. So the first thing I'm looking at is the overnight, right? And what I'm noticing is a couple of things. First of all, a lot of I'm setting a series of higher lows with the exception of the one news day, right? We had these series of downtrends that we were working through, and we worked through all of those, okay, on a longer time frame. So does this mean we go straight up? No, not necessarily. But we are no longer in a downtrend. At least in my eyes, we're no longer in a downtrend. So that means I expect responsive buyers lower, and I expect easier trade to be generally from the long side instead of the short side. That doesn't mean I want to chase up. I still want to do the exact same thing I've been doing all along. I want to buy at the zone at lower levels, but on my swing trades, I might want to let them run a little bit further than I normally do, figuring I have a little bit more of a reach. Now, by the same token, when we're switching our mentality from a bearish mentality to perhaps a bullish mentality, or not even that, but we want a hunter's mentality, but we got to also realize that the trend may be stronger to the upside. So when I'm looking at that, I don't want to think, well, we're not going to pull down at all. I want to think we could pull down from extended levels when buyers are getting exhausted intraday. Okay, and by the same token, I may look for buyers to get exhausted, sellers to get exhausted earlier than they would normally under a more of a seller's environment. Okay, so again, these trend lines mean absolutely nothing. They can get busted right through. They're just lines on a chart, and they just kind of give me an idea of where we're generally going. We clearly, as I look at this chart, we have a ton of supply in here between 1680 and 1690. I do not know where the sellers will come in, and like I said, there's no rules. The market doesn't have to follow any rules, right? News can drive it. We're having the Apple event today, which is certainly going to drive NQ to a degree. And then obviously the other thing I'm thinking of is, will we get a seller's response off of the Apple presentation that's been driving NQ? The other thing to think of along with that, when I take a quick look at the NQ, is that we are setting new all-time highs. And I have to think that even if we get a seller's response, the first time into this 3140 area, 3145, I have to think we'll get responsive buyers in that area if we get there. Again, there's no rule that says we have to go down, but if you look, we've had pretty good extensions, right? So like this, for example, this is 3145 all the way down to 3100. That's 45 points. Well, 45 points from this 3190 area brings us right into this 3140, 3145 area. So it's certainly feasible that, say, by tomorrow, midday, we could be in that area. We could even be in that area today. I don't have any kind of time frame. But when we get down there, I'm going to look at that. And if I see that NQ is in a support area, I'm going to look and see, well, is ES in a support area too? Because generally speaking, if NQ's been getting buyers, ES has been getting buyers, vice versa if it's been getting sellers. If it's been getting sellers, I'm also looking for, well, are there sellers there? In ES, because it's been clearly the market leader, right? And so one of two things is going to happen. On ES, we still have quite a way to go till we're breaking out to new highs, which would be 1705. It's not a ton of room, but it's still a good 25 points away from where we're opening this morning, right? So when I'm looking at that, one of two things is going to happen. Either ES is going to fail to break and it's going to drag the NASDAQ, and it's going to drag the NASDAQ down, or vice versa. We're going to push to new highs on ES. And I don't care and I don't need to know which one is going to happen. What I do want to do on a morning like this morning is I want to be cautious off of the open, stepping into the front. We already know that gap ups are not automatically sold. And as a matter of fact, what the normal pattern has been, even in the downtrend, has been gap up and extend a little bit up, even on sell-off days, and then reverse down, right? So I might look to levels higher. I'm going to judge it off of price action and not just off of the zone alone. I want to see where the tick opens. And again, usually on most days, if we're having a healthy two-way market, we're getting opportunities later in the day. If we're not getting a two-way market, we simply want to sit there and go, okay, I missed the trend day up, which is fine. I'm a counter trend trader. If they don't let me in on a trend day, which is usually if we establish a trend day, I'm going to take a shot at that at the first zero tick reading, right? But if I don't get that, or I don't get a good trade location to get long, I'm just going to have to shrug my shoulders and go, I don't get paid today. But what I don't do, and it's very critical, is I don't dig myself a hole. And last week's a perfect example of that. We balanced through that. Even on the day trades, I called out on Twitter, right? Up net 1.5 points for the week. We added 2 more to that yesterday. And I want to continue on. I've gone through periods of time where I haven't made a ton of money, or the swings are making the money and the day trades aren't making the money. But then if I can get through those periods and just add a few chips, stack a few chips as I'm going through, when I get back to my two-way market or days with balance, I know that I'm going to get paid huge, right? So I can be very patient with that. So allow for extensions. Right now, if we got a 10-point extension, we'd be looking up at that 1690, 1691 area, where we might initially find sellers for a good swing lower. And then from areas below, obviously, if we come into gap fill, I would look for responsive buyers in that area as well. I would also be mindful of half gap, and you want to calculate that off the open. So 5 minutes to the open, I'm going to upload this. I hope everyone has a great day. Keep your game plan on, and if you get stopped, remember your rules for being stopped. Don't dig yourself a hole. Anyways, have a great day. I will see y'all during the market and some of y'all after market.